Hi, Bob. How are you doing?
I'm terrific. It's a Saturday.
It is Saturday. Thank you so much for joining us today. And for the
Okay.
people who are watching this video either on YouTube or our podcast, thank you so much for joining
hmm
us. So we have invited Bob Reed to just like share a little bit more insight on the Small Business Week that the whole world, especially United States, is preparing for. Business Week
Okay.
starts from May 1st up to May 7th. And this National Small Business Week of 2022 celebrates the resilience and tenacity of America's entrepreneurs who are doing their part to power the America's historic economic comeback. So we have invited Bob Reed to share his experience to the entrepreneurs because his background is very, very good, and we think that you can learn one or two things from him. A little bit about Bob Reed. He mentors several founders locally and also globally through NASDAQ Entrepreneur Center. He's passionate about connecting startup founders with subject matter experts and investment capital to accelerate their success. So, welcome, Bob. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Okay.
All right. So, I've given a little bit of the background about yourself. Would
hmm
you like to share a little bit more insight of who is Bob Reed? Um,
Okay.
all
How
the
much
people.
time do we have?
Uh, we have
Oh,
one
I'm
hour.
getting
We have like
okay.
now 55 minutes. Yeah. Or we can we can we
Okay.
can we can even reduce it to less than that. Yeah.
Okay. So I joke about it because I've had quite a long career, but I've done many things. I haven't worked for one or two companies. So I'll abbreviate the first part of my career. I've worked for very large companies, very well-known companies. I've worked at AT&T. I've worked at American Express and also at Disney. And primarily, I've worked in marketing, strategic planning, strategic alliances, and all types of marketing and selling, marketing to consumers and to businesses and selling. I've had sales forces as large as 40 salespeople um, doing business to business selling. And of course, have worked with very, very well known brand names, literally worldwide. Everybody knows those companies and their brands. So it was a great experience for me to understand a lot of the fundamentals of marketing and product management,
Yeah.
but also in running a business. But my goal was always to be a small business owner and to shift. So after many years doing that, I shifted into a small company, privately owned, and ran that company for the owners of that company, and learned a great deal about running an entire company and what that was like.
Mm.
And it really was my first step in understanding um, every decision you need to make as a small business. So I was working for billion-dollar companies, and I didn't have to make nearly as many decisions. So it gave me a good feel. And then I started my own business, my own consulting company, and then ultimately started working at Starter Studio, which is a business accelerator
Yeah.
in Orlando, Florida. And I was a mentor there, but now I'm head of all programming. So I'm director of programming there. And I develop programs that work with entrepreneurs at three different levels of development, from an idea, I have an idea, all the way through, I'm ready to raise money through venture capital. And so I facilitate that, but I also build those programs. So I've
Yeah.
had a long journey, a lot of big companies, small companies, had a lot of successes and failures along the way. But I really enjoy what I'm doing now in mentoring and building, companies from almost nothing, if you will, all the way to very successful. And we've had some very good successes with people raising quite a bit of money and being successful. So I'll stop there. That's probably the shortest one I've ever done. So I need the recording.
I will share the recording with you. Thank you so much for sharing a little bit more insight of
Sure.
who you are. And one thing that I love
Yep.
about what you've been doing, yes, you have built a $1 billion company or worked with them, but now that your
Yep.
focus is more on the small businesses and how you can help them
Yeah.
scale up or even mentor them to find their niche, but also
Yeah.
be able to raise funding. So you're doing a great job, and thank you so much for doing that. Very few people
Sure.
just want to join bigger companies or want to be part of bigger companies, but very few people want to be part of the small business companies, and I think that's why we are having this discussion. So when it comes to Small Business Week, what does that mean to you? Because I know one thing that I can be able to tell, when we see you as Bob Reed, we just see the outcome. We don't see where you started and all the hardship that made you who
Okay.
you are today. So what does
All
small
the
business,
scars here.
you have scars? So what does Small Business Week mean to you?
Yeah. What it means to me, and in fact, it's very timely because I just participated in a very large committee for our local community for entrepreneurial support organizations, ESOs, they're called. And there was a dozen of these organizations, and our whole purpose was to bring us together to provide a higher level of service to underserved communities in our area, because we were not doing a good job. We admitted that, and we said, how do we reach out to Black-owned business, Hispanic-owned business, women-owned businesses, veterans, really across the board. And so what Small Business Week means to me, it's an extension of that, is how do we really focus on small businesses? They really don't get the attention they need, and their needs are very unique.
Yes.
Example, if I'm a real estate agent or a lawyer, everybody understands my business and they can help me. But if I have a brand new business and they go, what is a blockchain? What is artificial intelligence? I have no idea. So they can't kind of wrap their head around it. So, and yes, those are kind of high tech companies, but what we're finding is we really need to focus more in the community on small business and bring to them services that will fit their situation. Quick example is if that small business goes to a bank here in America, that bank will say, well, you need 3 years of sales, okay? And you need probably $500,000 in sales, and you need a team, and on and on. And the person goes, I'm just starting, but I really need $10,000 to kick off my business. And there's very few ways of getting to that. So we're working with a lot of banks to do better micro loans. And in fact, not even a loan, but micro grants. And so if they fail, they don't have to pay it back. And that's the big deal. So that's how I feel about it. It really is an important thing.
Love the answer. And I think your answer also fits into the theme of this year, small business theme, which is like resilience and tenacity. Because at the end of the day, most of the people, when we talk about businesses, everyone wants to hear about Elon Musk business. We want to hear about Tesla. We want to hear about how is Apple doing, Facebook. But at the end of the day, for Apple to be who they are today, they started small. No one wakes up one day and then all of a sudden they're $1 trillion company. They need to start small. And for them to be able to start small, if you don't have your own funding, then we need support of these banks or even investors and funding. So I love that. I love that you're trying to bridge that gap between small companies and also these big banks of people who can fund them so that they can meet in the middle and also be able to scale on their own.
Yeah, and in many cases, the banks have their business model, their way of operating, and so part of it is to say, let's take a piece of your bank, let's move it over here, and it's going to do things very differently. And we have some local banks here we're working with, and they are making that transition and saying the rules are completely different. We are not going to measure you in the same way. So it's really making a lot of headway.
I love that. I love that. Thank you for doing that. I think it's really needed in this word. And this brings me to the second question. When we talk about small businesses, when we talk about even big companies, at the end of the day, we see the shine, we see the glow, but we don't see failure. All right. So how has a failure or apparent failure set you up later for success? Or do you have a favorite failure of yours that you can share with us and also be able to empower small businesses that are on that blink of maybe closing or shutting down their doors, or
Yeah.
letting half of the employees go because the books are not balancing, or there is a mistake that was made. So can you share with us?
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. Sure. And we have a saying, especially in the entrepreneur world, failures are your next step to success. And maybe you've heard it. And it truly is like that. And I have been in, even in the convention business I was in, we had 50 employees. We had to reduce to 30 employees. And day by day, we were on the brink, many cases, especially with cash flow.
Yeah.
And you basically go, okay, I have payroll due on Friday, and I don't have even half the payroll. And it's Tuesday. And it happened quite a few times. And what I learned, and this was my transition from a big to a small company, you just said, have faith. You will make it. It will happen. And the first few times I said, you guys are crazy. Like, it's not, no, this is not going to happen. And sure enough, it happened. And so they said, no, we have to just basically, otherwise you just shut down, right? And you say, no, one step forward, one more. And when you did that, it happened, it worked. And you mentioned resilience, and that's probably our key thing is, if you're not resilient, do not go into small business. Don't even step into that, because it'll just eat you up. So not to be too harsh. And I'd almost say, how much time do you have so I can talk about my failures? But I had a small business, and it was after I was in my convention business, and we started it up, and we did what every entrepreneur we teach, we didn't do. And now I have those skills. I didn't have those skills before. And we really didn't validate our business model. We didn't really test and prove it out enough. We just jumped right in, and we had our own funding. Fortunately, I had some savings, and I put that in, and other people put it in. We said, no, this is going to work. And sure enough, 2 years later, we just couldn't make the business model work. It actually had a different business model that worked. But we ran out of money. And if we had started with knowing the right business model, we would have been very successful. So that's probably kind of my favorite one. And a big learning. But now I take that forward, and I do my cohorts of entrepreneurs. I'll do 8-10 people at a time, and I can share that and say, I've learned it firsthand. If you don't validate or prove it out. So.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
I think learning from mistakes is very important, like you said, but having mentors or asking for an advice. So if you would have maybe taken a step back to study the business model and test it out before launching it, it would have been maybe it would have been a different outcome than just putting all your savings in something that ending clashing at the end of a year or 2 years. So thank you so much for sharing. But as you can hear, guys, Bob Reed went through it. You are not alone. And also, like you said, have some faith. Have some faith. But also ask for advice, and don't feel like you are the only one carrying that burden of the whole business. You have a team, and you can ask them to actually give you advice.
And I would also recommend seek out, and part of what we're able to do is bring those entrepreneurs together in one place. And frankly, they learn more from each other as we move through, because we do 10 weeks, for instance, and it's after about 3 or 4 weeks, they're all helping each other. They're literally giving each other advice and supporting each other. And there's nothing better than having that outlet, because otherwise, as a small business, you're right. You feel very alone. You say, I'm the only one that could mess this up this badly. And then other people can share what they did, and you go, okay, I don't feel too bad.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. Also coming to that, I think you mentioned that you started a business and you did not test the business model, and then at the end of the day, you had to change. Share with us, what is one of the most worthwhile investment you've ever made?
Yeah. I would say, and it's very current. I really made a transition in my last job I had, and I said I want to participate in the entrepreneurial community, and I didn't really have the kind of experience that they looked up to. Let's say they admired. They said, "Oh no, if you haven't started up 3 companies and raised money and exited, then you're not going to fit in here," which was my perception, which was wrong. But I said, okay, then I'm going to start by helping mentoring people, and I connected with being a mentor here locally, then through NASDAQ, in a very significant way. And I've connected with, I think now, 65 different companies worldwide, mentoring. And what that was able to do was I was able to hone my skill and understand all different types of startup companies in various phases in different countries. And by doing that, I was then able to transition to actually teaching and facilitating. And now I feel very comfortable with doing so. It was a huge investment of time, probably almost 5 years of time. But in doing so, I was able to really understand the ecosystem. And now we go out and we meet with universities, with Fortune 500 companies, whoever it is, and we talk about entrepreneurship. And so it's a very good feeling to be connected with that way. So that was an investment I personally made, and the rewards have been amazing, to be able to do it.
That's a very, I think that's a very, very great answer. I was expecting to hear
Yep.
that you invested $100,000 and then you got $1 million out of it. Or you
No,
invested
I
in
haven't been too.
crypto.
Yeah.
You invested in crypto like when it just
Right.
started, and then all of a sudden now you are worth billions of dollars. But you just
Yeah.
touched on you invested your time to help people. And
Yeah.
what can be
Yeah.
the best investment in life? Because I think not
Exactly.
only you are helping the people, but also that can be really, really fulfilling. So
Yeah.
that's very
It
interesting.
is.
That's
Yeah. And
thank
as they
you.
say, follow your passion or find your passion. And I read a great book, and essentially it said, you have no idea what your passion is. Just go do something
Yes.
and get passionate about it. And I've always, took that on. But I've always enjoyed entrepreneurship and startups and inventing, and
Yeah.
so this is perfect. So it's taken me quite a few decades to get here, but I think I've arrived.
Yes, thank you so much for doing
Okay.
that. When I was doing an introduction of you, I mentioned that you mentor several founders locally, but also
Yeah.
globally through NASDAQ Entrepreneur Center. Can you tell us a
Yeah.
little bit on how NASDAQ um, can help small businesses, and how can these small
Yeah.
businesses benefit from NASDAQ as well? If you can just like
Oh,
give us a
sure.
little bit more insight on it, so that people who are listening to this
Absolutely.
or reading our blog or listening to our podcast can understand what NASDAQ do and
Okay.
how it can benefit them. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. And it's in 2 ways. And the first way I'll describe is you can be any small business anywhere on the planet, and you literally just have an idea, or you're maybe a little more developed, and that's through their mentor maker platform. And you can sign up immediately, go in and say, I'm seeking a mentor. Here's who I am. Here's my business idea, and I participate in that platform quite a bit. And so, as a mentor, I put in hours each week. I say, okay, here are 4 different hours I can meet, and then small companies, small businesses all around the world say, oh, Bob seems to be a good match with my company, and I would like some advice. And they literally set up time. I don't control who blocks that time at all. And so they come in and they say, hi, I have an idea. I'm working on this and I need some advice. And I give them advice, but they can also have 10 mentors, literally, and they can seek out. And I know when they sign on, I see how many mentor sessions they've had. And you can see some people have had 10 or 12 with 4 different mentors. So it's a fantastic, no cost way. And you really get connected with some very good resources, talent. I mean, it's amazing the people that are on it. The second way is through their Milestone Maker program, which is a business accelerator. And people are actually selected around the world to participate in that. That's a more rigorous application. And yes, you have to be further along with your company. In many cases, actually either generating revenue or pretty close. And you qualify for that. And I participate also in that two ways. I actually help select the people that participate. So I'm on the committee to evaluate the applicants, but then after we start the cohort, I become a mentor for at least one or maybe two of those companies. So two different ways, two different levels, but for any small business, you're crazy not to go on this platform and get advice.
So from what I'm hearing, even though we're talking about small businesses, from what I'm hearing is that there is a platform to help these small businesses flourish and scale up. And that's NASDAQ. And guys, if you are thinking of starting a venture, if you already have a small business and you need some advice, you hear it yourself. Go to NASDAQ, book your appointment, and maybe you will be fortunate enough to have Bob Reed in your presence and then offer some advices. Crossing fingers.
And now there are many very good mentors. We meet as a mentor group about once a quarter. And I meet the other mentors from around the world, and there are very impressive people. I mean, I'm not trying to hype it up really at all. Very impressive, and they spend their time giving you advice. So definitely worth checking out. It doesn't hurt.
Yes, we will also drop the link of NASDAQ in the comment section, but also in the blog. Guys, make sure you check it out. So when you talk about NASDAQ and mentoring these small businesses, I'm so sure you have come across a lot of small businesses and a lot of people that you have mentored around. So give us one common mistake that you find that is similar among small business owners or people who just started their venture. What is this common mistake, and what is your advice to making sure that the people who are watching this or people who are going through this get out of it or don't make it if it's their first time?
Okay, and there's kind of a few of them that stand out, but one that's more in my lane, if you will, and a lot of my background is marketing. And what often happens is the person is starting up the company and they say, okay, I've got a good idea. Maybe I've proven it out. Now I'm ready to go to market. And for some reason, they underestimate how hard marketing is. They pretty much go, oh, well, this is easy. I have a picture of my product or service, and I'll throw a little color in there. I'll put it on a Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram, and they just go, just let it ride, and that's it. That's all. I'll sit back, I'll have a cup of coffee, and my website will blow up. And I'm being funny about it, but they underestimate the amount of strategy and planning that goes into marketing to be effective, and also to be able to gather the information you need to make corrections, because you're going to spend a lot of money in marketing or in selling, and it will be a complete waste of time. It will not work, in other words, but you'll gather good information about what not to do and what to do. And when you put those two together, you can now be extremely efficient with your marketing. Your return on that marketing investment will be very, very good. But so many just go, okay, I want to go right to executing, and I'll go out. I'll just throw it out there, and basically they don't think about my messaging, my positioning. So yes, it's frustrating because I spent so much time kind of going through it. And it's almost like going to the doctor and saying, oh, doctor, I'm here, but I know exactly what you need to do. And the doctor goes, oh, really? Okay, tell me. So that's my answer to your question.
So what can be your advice? What can they do? Because personally, I've seen a lot of that. And I didn't know that a lot of people make that mistake. Most of people think that when we talk about marketing, then marketing is, let me hire someone to handle my social media, and then that's it. And then let me put $10,000s on ads, and then Facebook will do its job to put this in front of as many people as possible
Yeah.
and then win. And then it doesn't work. Like say it require you can spend a lot of money on it with zero
Yes.
return. So what can be your advice to even
Yeah.
if it's one tip
Yeah.
around
My advice, and really the foundation of marketing is, and it's interesting because it aligns very well with
yeah,
entrepreneurship and starting up a company,
yeah,
is test it, try it, get information, but do it in little bite-sized pieces.
mm-hmm,
So for instance, to do Facebook ads, you can put $100 in Facebook ads or in Google ads,
yeah,
and you can gather a whole lot of information.
yes,
And you can do, organic stuff. You can post stuff on LinkedIn and Instagram at no cost. But what you need to do is measure what the impact of that is. So you've done it. Well, what's happened?
mm,
And how often does it happen? And so what you can do quite quickly, the beauty of digital marketing nowadays is you can do it quickly, get data, make better decisions. So essentially say, okay, who's my target audience? What's my message? Let me try it. And if you get no responses from
yeah,
it, you go, okay, that didn't work. So let me try something different,
yes,
instead of saying, well, if I spend $5,000 on this same Facebook ad,
mm-hmm,
it will work. And that's wrong. So my advice is test it in little bite-sized pieces, gather your information, and then yes, you're ready to kind of pull the trigger, so to speak, and say, great, now I'm ready to put in a big amount of money. But yes, you can spend a great deal of money on marketing and have it literally give you zero return. So,
thank
okay,
you so much. I think you
sure.
hear it, guys, and I'm also learning a lot of things from this interview. So thank you so much for the gems that you're dropping. We are coming
Sure.
almost to an end of our interview because we don't want it to be
Yep.
so long. But before we move
Okay.
to the fireside chat of like questions, just like one answer questions, you mentioned that you really are passionate about marketing. Are they
Yes.
are there any other particular industries that you like to mentor in and why?
That I would like to mentor in,
That
you
you
said?
like to mentor in? For
Oh,
example, any industry that you are more passionate about than any other, even if you share
mm,
one or two. Yeah.
yes. Well, it's a very recent growing interest
Yes.
that I have, because we've worked now with companies that are actually taking NASA technology
Mhm.
and they're commercializing it. So now we're talking big tech, deep tech is usually the term. But it's absolutely fascinating where they can take something that is working on the International Space Station for the last 20 years, and they
Yes.
go, okay, how do I make a business out of this? So that's one that I'm becoming more passionate about, because I'm now working with entrepreneurs that are doing that. And it's absolutely incredible the kind of resources that are actually available to
Mm.
help them with that technology. And this example, it doesn't have to be NASA. You can go to a university, and a university has technology or intellectual property that is literally sitting on a shelf,
Yes.
and nobody's making a business out of it. And those universities have organizations that try to transfer that technology.
Hmm.
And now what's happening in these universities, they are really aggressively reaching out to entrepreneurs to come in and say, sit with this PhD scientist who knows this stuff, but knows nothing about business. And how can we put you two together? So it makes for an exciting kind of, pairing to do it. So anyhow, that's in the last year we've started to work with those people. Before that was a lot of software, anything dealing with software and platforms and apps.
Yeah.
So
That's
okay,
that's very interesting. So I hear that you are so inclined to like a little bit more in tech or science. That piques a lot of
yeah,
your interest. Those industries pique a lot of your interest, and so do
yeah,
I. I feel like that's where the world also is heading. All right.
yes,
Thank you so much. Now we are heading to the second section of our interview, which is like the
okay,
fireside question, a little bit more relaxed. If you
Yep.
could have a gigantic billboard anywhere with anything on it, what would it say and why?
Okay. I think I said, don't give up. Progress is one more move ahead. Okay. So it just constantly, because I see many entrepreneurs get discouraged, and many that I mentor, I'll
Yeah.
mentor and I'll have 3 or 4 sessions, and then they'll disappear. They kind of ghost me for a little while, and then they come back 6 months later, and I say, "Wow, what happened?" And they get discouraged, and they say, "No, I don't want to do this." So, but the ones that really stick with it, and the ones we see that are very, very successful. And when I say success, they're not raising $1 billion, but
Yes.
they're essentially they've now employed 10 or 15 employees, and they have a business that they can live on. They can generate enough money to pay their bills. And to me, that's the first step in success. At least I can pay my bills, and I'm okay. And so that's kind of my advice
Yeah,
there.
I love
Okay.
that. Don't give up. Don't give
Yep.
up. Don't give up, guys. Don't give up.
Yeah.
Another question of our fireside chat is, if there is one piece of advice you can give to the new entrepreneurs and small business owners, what would it be
Yeah.
and why?
Okay. Yeah. My advice is almost the advice that I didn't have when I started my business.
Yes.
And we say this, we have a program where we have people with ideas. And the first thing we say on the first night is, don't quit your day job. You don't do that, because very often they go, "Oh, I'm jumping in with both of you. Here we go." And we say, stop, just take a little while to really prove that what you have, your product, your idea is solving a problem.
Yes.
And that's a fundamental in entrepreneurism. You must solve a problem. And if people watch that program called Shark Tank, the very first question, usually within the first 30 seconds, is, what problem are you solving? And that is true worldwide. So if you aren't solving a problem with your idea, your product, don't move ahead with it. Stop right where you are and rethink what you're doing. But so often they say, "I have a cool idea. This is the great idea." And then they ask 5 of the wrong people, right? Their mother, their brother, their sister, and their grandfather. And they say, "Do you think it's a good idea?" And they go, "Of course it is. Good luck." And that's fraught with peril. That's the key to having a problem. So we always say, solve a problem and then test that out and see if people are willing to solve the problem with your product. So you may solve the problem, but they go, "Oh no, I've already solved that problem with these 3 products."
Yes.
So that's my advice.
So it's like test it, but also seek for feedback, not your family, guys,
Yes.
not your wife, not your
No.
child, not your dad, because your dad doesn't want to hurt your
No,
feelings.
the worst people.
Yeah, they don't want to.
And that's right. Oh yeah. No.
All right,
They really
all right. Thank you so much, Bob. That comes to an end of
Okay.
our session, and we hope to have you more. And thank you so much for the gems.
Sure.
Guys, I hope this session was helpful to you. We are also having a webinar on the May 4th where Bob Reed is going to be joining us and sharing more gems around small businesses and entrepreneurship. So you cannot afford to miss it. Please join us, and then we'll be also follow us at on Flurry, join Flurry. Our Instagram is Flurry Global. Our LinkedIn is flurry.inc. So do not forget to follow us also on our socials, and also follow Bob Reed on LinkedIn. His name is Bob Reed as well. So thank you so much for joining us, guys. And that's the end of our session. Bye.
All right.